fucking look at these tires. They're massive, right? But it doesn't really look lifted. Measurement was 1 inch higher than stock here and about 1 3/4 of an inch higher in the back. Heck, if I can get that up to like 2.5, 3 inches in the back, and then probably like just an even 2 inches, maybe 2.5 inches, that's my plan. I found Silver's North America. They agreed to take measurements and basically create a custom application coilover to lift the Nissan Juke. Feel just a little bit disappointed, like they could have used a lot more of this space for shock travel. And this especially, like, I don't even know how much travels here. These are the rear springs. 220 millimeters, basically about 8 3/4 inches or so. And that's exactly extended size of the springs that I already have. Have no idea if these will get me the lift that I'm looking for. I'm going to go ahead and install those front struts. See where I end up. Oh, there's a fucking snail on my car. Hey, buddy. Hello. So you already know how this goes. You take the windshield wipers off, you unclip all this stuff. It still has the washer hose connected to it, so we can't move it too far, but as long as we can access all 3 of these bolts, we should be good. Now we gotta break all these bolts loose, you know how it is. And then jack the car up from what is probably definitely not the correct jacking point, because you only have a 2.5 ton jack when you're jacking on asphalt. I found that it's probably best to put a little piece of steel plate on the bottom there that just keeps your fucking front wheels from smushing into the ground. I popped the brake line out, I popped the ABS sensor off of it, I unscrewed these bolts. The last thing I need to do is I need to figure out what the size of the new this thing is. Sway bar link. Silver's is pretty cool because they have a adjustable doohickey. The mount on the coilover is 2 inches lower than the mount stock, and because there's a 30 millimeter spacer on the top of this, when it's at full droop, this is supposed to be 1.25 inches or so up because of the 30 millimeter difference. Okay, so the stock one is 11.25, and that's 2 inches lower than that, so that makes it 2 inches shorter. So it goes from 11.25 to 9.25. Don't ask me why that took so long. It needs to be 1.25 inches less than that, so it needs to be 8 inches, right? So I need to, what did I say? 9.25, 8 inches, okay. Got some spinning to do. Needs to be 8, really. Even with the lift, huh? That's weird. That is super weird. Okay, we've got the old strut out, and then I think it's that one because the brake line is on this side. First coilover is in. Adjusted the height of this to 23 inches. It's the maximum that the guy at Silver's told me that it can be extended. Comparing it to the old strut, I must have gotten my measurements wrong somewhere along the way, because I had told him that the maximum length I needed from the top to this bolt was 22 inches, but it turns out that when I took this out, the size became 23 3/4 inches. So I've got it set to 23 inches. It's probably going to be too low, and that probably means I'm going to have to send them back, or they're going to have to send me new parts or something. But we're going to put the wheel on, and we're going to see how it gets. Got him in there. The camber adjustment was a little bit wonky. The guy said there was 2 degrees of camber, and you know that 2 degrees of camber goes a long way. So we ended up putting it somewhere in the middle. I think I've got like plus ½ degree now. Probably also a good amount of toe too, which should probably get fixed soon. So we tried our damnedest to get the springs out. We took the sway bar link out, and that didn't get us far enough. We tried to unbolt the upper control arm, and that got really wonky. You see how this is just like canted at that angle? Just because of this 2 inches of lift here, camber adjustment eccentric bolts that are causing everything to just sort of shift out that way, because to just try and get the camber happy, but that puts a lot of strain on the suspension components. Try and see if we can get some new control arms made. That would be very fancy. At the very least, same springs in as before, and we've got new fancy silvers, adjustable dampening shock absorbers, so at least the ride should be somewhat even front to back. So this is the spring perch. That's supposed to sit right about there, kind of close to this. I just don't know what the spring rate of this is. So that, I mean, if we could get it in, it might actually work for the lift. We got a mechanic to install these before, so we might just speak to that same guy and see if he can help us out. It's a brand new day to work on the Juke. Okay, so what did I get wrong? I was getting this weird clunking noise that I thought was coming from up here, but it turns out it wasn't. It was actually from the end link. I had tightened the fuck out of it, but for whatever reason this nut still came loose, and the clunking I was hearing was just from the whole thing twisting like that. This little eccentricity here, this ovaling, is supposed to be your camber adjustment, and what I didn't know was at first I had put it all the way back like this, and that's like -2, probably -2.5 degrees. So I was like, okay, so I unbolted everything, took the fucking wheel back off of it, lifted it back up, and I put it to like halfway, and I was still like -1 degree at least, probably even more than that. So what I'm gonna do is I found this rusty ass penny, and I'm just gonna press it up against the cast part of the knuckle. I'm gonna do that until this feels flush, and then I'll bolt it up. So I'm at a penny's worth of camber, which is the most ghetto thing, the most ghetto alignment you could possibly do to your car. When I set the car down and drove on it for like a couple miles, it was at like close to 1.5 inch lift. But then as I was starting to drive around on it yesterday, I measured it again, and it was exactly where it was with the spacer. Talked to the guy at Silvers, and he was like, did you add 1/4 inch of preload? Ah man, I don't even have the literature up here. The wording, I believe, is better be loose preload or something like that, and it didn't make any goddamn sense to me. I just left it at the factory because it didn't move on the factory setting. I guess if I put more weight on the spring, then the suspension should compress less. Put like just less than 1/2 inch just to get to the spring to compress to about 7 3/8. Yeah, that doesn't look like 7 3/8. Well, this was 7 3/8 a minute ago, so that's what I'm going off of. That's where I tightened it to, and it didn't become loose. So, God, I am just not doing my due diligence with these coilovers. I'm bad. If I had 2 hands on this to make it accurate, it would be 7 3/8. Anyways, I'm rambling again. And also, this bottom collar was just loose. Another thing that would probably be not great. I took this bolt out, spun this down a few more times, which is already like sketchy, I think. It's a little bit less than they recommend for the maximum amount of drop, but I sent them the wrong measurements, so I'm just gonna have to figure out how long I can do with this. In their diagram, they showed the amount of shock travel available being 147 millimeters, which is like, I think a little less than 6 inches. Pretty much what I estimated the OEM ones to be, even though like the OEM ones look pretty goddamn tall. But that must have been just like mostly spring. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of a bummer, but they said that 147 is the tallest shock travel that they offer. So I guess there's always that fallback plan of getting a fabricator to get some Fox 2.0 shocks. Yeah, that's about 2 inches, minus the threads. I think the threads are a little bit wider than that. So I could probably just slip a 2.0 shock into this sleeve, put a bolt through here, and then that could be my new coilover. Like it's that simple. Basically, I put some preload on this, I extended this just a little bit more, and then I guess I'll see where that goes. Hold on, fucking stop the presses. My goddamn Cobalt torque wrench just broke on me. So I gotta, I guess, fit this in here. I'm assuming it's like that, because it'd have to ratchet in the same direction, right? Right, yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense, I think. Fuck. So, I might be retarded because you don't actually have to unbolt this from the knuckle at all, because the whole point of the shock absorber is to spin when the whole knuckle moves. So all I have to do is just loosen this collar. You can literally just twist the whole thing, and then this will start to lower. But I need to adjust my alignment anyways. Oh my god, I lost my 1 cent alignment. There it is. Ah, yes, the most affordable alignment ever. Oh yeah, and here's a bonus. I also installed the upper and lower Manny mounts. We will be able to experience that in a minute. I actually bedlinered the whole back of this part, which took me fucking forever. There's actually a bunch of shit that happened. Got an armrest. Fucking that you can't see. Got an armrest. I should put that down so I can leave. I was kind of missing putting my arm on something for a while, but now I finally have that. So that means I've got all the mods installed, except for, oh yeah, somebody gave me a fucking, an extra short ram intake, without the filter on it, basically for free. And I've also got a 2J Racing aluminum lightweight pulley, which I don't have the proper tools to uninstall the old one or install this new one, so it's just been sitting back here, you know? But that's 2 more things on the menu eventually. But let's go and let's give it a good fucking stick out your ear balls for you're gonna hear this how an engine sounds. Many mounts. There it is. All right. So are you guys ready for this? It's only a little bit loud. Alright, so wait for this person to go. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. This is just regular old sport mode. It'd probably sound a little bit better if I dared. Look at that golf. Look at him go. Nice. I wish I could drive like that, but I'm holding a fucking camera. So this is just sport mode. It'd be better if I was doing that dealy, the shifty nonsense. It'd sound a lot better. In regular CVT mode, it sounds pretty awful because it'll just drone at a certain amount. The great thing about this is that you could just take your foot completely off the pedal and all the noise pretty much goes away. That's the one bearable thing about it. I'll stop back by the apartment because I got shit to do today that's not this. So anyways, that's how it sounds with the motor mounts. And that's how it drives with the coilovers. God damn, just like with just the dampening adjustment alone, it just felt so much, you know, better to drive. Like just accelerating, it felt way more planted. It felt like more power was getting to the wheels. As far as like mods that don't actually increase horsepower, definitely like coilovers and the engine mounts are 2 really, really strong mods to pair together. Like it totally changes the feel of the vehicle, and basically the engine's doing the same amount of work that it's always done, which is just great. So when I get back to the apartment, you will see me measure the height of the vehicle now. Basically all of the noise of the engine is getting transmitted into the body of the frame, basically just making it an echo chamber. Here's what happens when you turn the engine off. You basically hear like the whole engine itself just slowly wind down, and it's special, you know? All right, so we get this thing and we put it right here, like I've always done, and measure it 17 and 7/8. That is an 1 3/4 lift in the front, boys. We are basically at a 2-inch lift all around. We are nice and square now. Okay, well this side's 17 and 5/8. So that either means that it's just on uneven ground, or I just measured this side wrong. But that still leaves me at like 1.5 inch lift overall on the front. So I'm fine with that. 1 3/4. Still haven't installed the new springs that came with the Silver's kit, but I'll do it eventually, along with the SRI and the pulley. Wow, I didn't realize there was so much shit that I haven't done in my car yet. Okay, I'm done.